Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Complete Sports Media's podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Darren Campbell. And joining me tonight is Jeff Meszaros. Jeff is a very accomplished martial artist. He teaches Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, a longtime radio guy, and MMA journalist for very many years. And really excited to have Jeff join me tonight. Thanks a lot, Jeff. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Doing really good. Yeah. Other than getting locked down again and, the COVID just hitting this next wave. Things are great. Having a lot of fun in this podcast. And I know I've wanted to have you as a guest for a really long time, and I'm glad we can finally make this time for you to come in. This is going to be fun.
Oh, yeah, you bet. Well, you and I, we know each other because we go to the same pub sometimes to watch the UFC, and we have a friend or two in common there. So
exactly.
It's nice to be here.
Yeah. Well, I kind of feel like tonight we're probably going to set 3 records for Complete Sports Media podcast. And I'm pretty excited about setting some records. I think we're going to have the guy with the most education. I'm going to go into a little bit of details on that. The most belts ever in martial arts history, and possibly the top comedian. Scott Holborn, Jason Cameron are kind of my go-to comedian guys, giving me a lot of fun and laughs and stuff. But I think you might rival them. Do you think you're a little bit funnier than Scott, or is he the funnier guy out of the two?
I'm definitely funnier than Scott. Okay. Scott's not funny at all. But I mean, I don't know who else you've had on here, but I mean, in terms of my martial arts background, like I have black belts in Taekwondo and Hapkido and Jiu Jitsu and a brown belt in Judo. Almost got my black belt in that. But yeah, I've been doing martial arts since I was like 12 years old, and I'm turning 48 soon. So I've been around for a while, and I guess I was a martial arts journalist there from about 98 till I don't even know when. I don't do it anymore, but it's funny. You know the underground forum, mixedmartialarts.com?
Sure.
Yeah. Back, I was on that years ago, and years ago. Wow. Before mixedmartialarts.com, it was MMA.tv, and before that, it was like rec.martialarts. Maybe it was martialarts.rec or something. It was just like a chat group. Like it was the early years even of like the internet.
That's great.
I know. Yeah, I know.
Really
so
great.
like you're on there, you have to give yourself like a nickname, right? You can't. Well, I guess you can give yourself your own name. Everyone calls themselves Captain Ball Crusher or whatever. And I just called myself Wombat. You know what I mean? Because I knocked open a dictionary and flipped through it, and I thought, that's a good name to call myself, Wombat. And so I got sort of the nickname, and I was writing, witty stuff on there or whatever.
Yeah.
And then a guy in Victoria, Arnold Lim, he was running a website called MMA Ring Report. And I was writing some funny shit on there or whatever on mixedmartialarts.com. At the time it was MMA.tv. And he asked me, hey, if we just start writing for my website and I'll send you, swag, cups and stuff.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Nice. So I started writing UFC predictions on his website for, mugs and just, swag, so to speak.
Swag, okay.
And then one thing led to another, and I started writing for this website and that website and this magazine, and I was writing for pretty much every magazine after a while that had the word fighter in it. I was writing for Full Contact Fighter, Real Fighter, Fighters Only, Extreme Fighter, and then one day I was writing actually for a little magazine here or newspaper here in Vancouver, and I was writing a weekly column for them about whoever, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And I had picked up the magazine or the newspaper rather to look at my column, and I noticed in the want ads there was an ad there for a mixed martial arts reporter.
Nice.
I thought, okay, well here's one more I'll apply for. And
that was Bodog TV. Bodog TV, right? That was Bodog TV, right?
Bodog, yeah. And then Bodog called me up and they're like, oh yeah, hey, we got your resume and we want to hire you. And I was like, oh, cool. And they're like, yeah, it's a full-time gig.
Wow.
And I'm like, you don't want me to just, you want me to like, yeah.
This is my job. This is going to be my job.
We send you around the world. And I was like, Jesus.
Wow.
And so at the time I was working at a radio station. I was working for the Beat 94.5 here in Vancouver. It's now Virgin Radio or something. That was like 2008, I think. So anyway, I quit that gig and I worked for Bodog for a year. And man, they sent me to the Playboy Mansion. I went and saw the Abu Dhabi World Championships of submission grappling. I went to Japan.
Wow.
I didn't get to go to Russia. I got gypped that I go into Russia, but for a year there, I was being sent around the world to watch mixed martial arts events and write about them. You know what I mean? And yeah, I know, it was really nuts.
Yeah.
And after that folded because they ran into some legal problems and had to jump ship and lay everybody off, including me. And then after that, I hosted the podcast, and I also did a ton of writing. I went back to working for Full Contact Fighter, the newspaper website thing, and I did their podcast for like a year.
Wow.
And then after a while, mixed martial arts had changed to the point where and my life had changed too. And I wasn't really following it the way I used to, like when I was like a freaking, what do you call it when someone's really good at something, but they're retarded in every other way, Anyway, there was a time when I was like, what do you call that? When someone's really good at something, but then they're like terrible at everything else. An idiot savant. That's what I was.
Savant. Okay. Yeah.
I had an old jiu-jitsu coach that called me a savant because like at the time I was, a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, I guess. And I just knew all this stuff and I could quote the UFC like it was case law, like legal case law, you know what I mean? And
Sure.
It was really a learning experience. But after a while, mixed martial arts became less of a learning experience and it became more like just kind of like pro wrestling. Like there was nothing here really to learn. It's just entertainment for whoever, you know what I mean?
Okay. Right. Okay.
And so then in around 2008 or 9, I stopped doing the martial arts thing because it had changed to the point where like when I started, like when it was style versus style, judo versus karate or karate versus Muay Thai, I knew all the martial arts so well that I could like pretty much pick who was going to win. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
And then after a while it changed. So it wasn't really about the style anymore. Everybody was doing kind of the same thing. Like some wrestling, some Muay Thai, some jiu-jitsu, more or less. And then it wasn't really about what they were doing because they were all kind of doing the same thing. It became kind of more about like the pharmaceuticals that they were taking or and now like everybody's kind of doing the same thing. Like they're doing kind of boxing, kind of jiu-jitsu, kind of wrestling, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not as it's much rarer to see something that is truly from which you can learn. You see what I mean?
I see, right. Yeah. And unique. Yeah. Like everybody seems to have those 4 coaches and they all do the same thing. And to see somebody unique, somebody coming with a different fighting style, it's super rare now, isn't it?
But back in the day when I watched the first few UFC. I don't know if you've been to the pub, the Marble Arch.
Of course.
The Marble Arch over in downtown there, man. Like that place, and I don't know why this was the case, that place showed everything. Like not only did they show the first few UFCs, like there were events that like there was an event called Contenders. Like Dan Henderson was in it, Carlos Newton was in it, and they showed it. They didn't have any audio because I think they were like pirating the signal or whatever, but they showed these like not just UFC, but like super, super rare little shows that you would never see anywhere else.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
That's great.
And the only people that went to the Marble Arch to watch it were like martial arts guys. Like I, at the time, back in the day, I was doing Hapkido because there was no jiu-jitsu in Vancouver at the time.
Wow.
I was doing Hapkido and then other judo guys and guys from Jeet Kune Do and Kung Fu would show up and we'd watch it. But now, like, if you look at the percentage of people that watch the UFC, what percentage of them do martial arts of a kind? Very few. Now it's like wrestling. Very few pro wrestlers watch wrestling. It's just generally the masses. You know what I mean? Yeah. So back in the day, when I watched UFC, before I started reporting on it, it was like these questions that everybody had. Hey, if a karate guy fought a wrestler, what would happen? And nobody knew. Nobody knew. And then you would watch this happen. You would watch, Minoki Ichihara fight Royce Gracie back in the day. And like, this was like mind-blowing shit. This is stuff you've never seen before.
That's great.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's when I was in my heyday. Like when Tank Abbott fought Vitor Belfort. Oh, who's going to win? I'm like, oh yeah, who's going to win? The younger Brazilian guy who's full of steroids and has dynamite in his hands, or like the fat guy that gets winded after a few minutes? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but then anyway, my point is, back in the day, I could call the fights.
That's
like,
great. Yeah.
I was 100% on the money. But these days, man, you don't know. I mean, shit. When Nurmagomedov fought Justin Gaethje just a few weeks ago, he went into it with like broken toes and like a staph infection or something. There's all shit. There's this shit that happens for the fights that you have no idea. Yeah. And sometimes it has a huge bearing on the fights, and sometimes it doesn't. You know what I mean? So these days, MMA is just like, you're just kind of rolling the dice. And it's way hard. I mean, sometimes, yeah, but it's way harder to pick a winner. Way harder. Plus the rules have changed and stuff. So like, basically what I'm getting at is I can't call fights the way I used to.
Right.
And, yeah.
So, yeah, well, you know, you being such an expert would have been nice. A lot of people would have utilized your, you know, knowledge and, you know-how about the game. Has it taken a little bit of fun out of it for you? Do you, you know, follow it less because of that?
Well, no, I mean, I still watch it, but like, there's a few things that have changed over the years. Like back in the day, people would specifically try and take their opponent into their areas of weakness. You know what I mean? Sure. Royce Gracie didn't go out there against, you know, Gerard Gordeau in UFC 1 and be like, you know what? I'm going to beat this motherfucker in his own front yard. You know what I mean? You'd be like, I'm going to take this guy down and choke him. But these days, people don't do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. You get guys who say, I'm going to kick this person's ass in the area in which they are best. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
No one is like, no one is trying to take, well, not no one, but fewer people are trying to take their opponent into the areas of their weakness. You see what I mean?
Yeah, it has. It's changed so dramatically. You know, I started watching, you know, mixed martial arts, I'd say mid 90s and onwards. And wow, it's just a completely different game. And yeah, it's been an incredible revolution, but I love looking back at the old fights. You have posted quite a few videos of old fights from your fight collection. You have a nice library, I've been told.
Yeah, and, right. My YouTube.
Yeah,
my YouTube
tell me some of the ones that you've posted and why did you post them? What stood out for some of these? And why did you want to have them up?
You mean the ones that like, because there's ones that like I shot myself.
Nice.
And there's other ones that I just like, because I was, another thing that makes me kind of a nerd is years ago, before there was, I wanted to say before there was YouTube, but it was before anybody really knew about YouTube. Like, I think it was actually before YouTube. It was like, I can remember being in my parents' basement, okay? And I guess there was the internet, but there certainly wasn't YouTube. And I would like meet people online and I would say, oh, hey, and I would send them a list of the videos I had. And they would send me a list of the videos they had.
Wow. And
we would like swap VHS tapes. We would make like copies of shit on VHS, and I would mail him my thing and they would mail me theirs. And I got like the weirdest stuff. I got like a Sambo, which is like this Russian martial art. I got like a Sambo seminar that was like done in Japan, and it's got like Japanese subtitles, and like I got these other like super weird events that like I had no idea what they were, but I was like sending that guy this copy of this thing. And then, so anyway,
then
when YouTube finally came around, or when I finally got my head out of my ass and decided to put some stuff online, I put up some stuff that like I had just gotten from wherever. Cause I'm like, I might be the only guy with a copy of this. Like this could very well be cause some of it's like camcorder footage and stuff, like weird snuff videos, although it's not. And so I wanted to put some of this stuff online because I thought to myself, well, I didn't shoot this, but I might be the only guy with a copy of this. Cool. So I put some of that online. And then some of the stuff I put online is stuff that, like, I had a camcorder back in the day, stuff that I shot myself, where I know for a fact I'm the only guy that has a copy of that. You know what I mean?
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And I, like, went online and, like, I went to SureDog, this website, and I looked up some names of some people, and I realized, and I found the actual name of the actual event. Because I had this one thing where I called it Ada Barn Fights, because it was fights in a barn. And it was in like Ada, North Dakota. Like, I think it's North Dakota. The town's called ADA. And the jiu-jitsu club I trained at in Winnipeg, at the time, there were no jiu-jitsu tournaments happening. Like the club I trained at, it was really more of a mixed martial arts club we just did jujitsu with our kimonos on sometimes, then took them off and beat each other senseless. And like the guys I trained with, a lot of them got mixed martial arts fights, like, you know, Joe Dirksen, Curtis Brigham, and a few other guys. And so we went to a few of these things down in, you know, like there was some that happened around Manitoba, and there was some that happened in like the northern states and stuff. And there was this one, like I'm saying, that happened in a barn.
Wow.
Like, it was in a barn. And like,
Unreal.
not only was there no doctors or nurses of any kind, they just put a ring, like a boxing ring, in a barn.
Wow.
And I remember, like, if you were like bleeding out of your ear or whatever, they would hand you paper towel, and like not even good paper towel, like it's that like brown, really rough kind. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like the stuff that's like on a wall at cheap, you know. And like anyway, that's on my YouTube channels. And like, you know, I mean, another guy I trained with, Krzysztof Shashinsky, he fought in the UFC. His first fight's on there. And he fights some guy named Matt Laframboise, which is like Matt the Strawberry, this like plump First Nations guy that just takes a beating. And then like Josh Neer, who fought in the UFC.
The dentist.
Josh Neer, yeah, the dentist. Yeah. I have stories with him too. He fought in that thing and just he just KOs some guy that's like 50 pounds heavier than him, and just crazy. Who else fights in that? There's the guy Kevin Manderson that's in Australia now, and so that was
cool.
Nuts. So if you go on my YouTube channel, you can see the videos of that. And like, there was this other one we went to that was in Thief River Falls. And like my buddy Dirksen, he fought this guy, Kyle Jensen, and there was like a rainstorm and the ring was outside. Wow. So like, imagine a boxing ring that gets so, and I mean, it was when I say rainstorm, it was a rainstorm. Like the kind of rain that knocks you down. Like in the prairies, it's either not raining or it's like raining so hard it kills some people. You know what I mean? Like there's a fatality.
Oh, jeez.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, it rained so hard that the boxing ring itself became not just a puddle, but like the water that gathered in it made it like, you know what I mean?
Wow.
Like it was like it was like fighting in a little kiddie pool or whatever, you know?
Jeez.
Anyway, Dirksen shot in on him and the guy put him in a guillotine, but then his feet were all slipping around and stuff. And like, it was just nuts. And like some people earlier in the match, some people earlier in the night, when they were fighting, they were wearing like skateboarding shoes, like in the ring. You know what I mean? It was nuts. I remember there's this one guy, totally other event, totally different event. And here's another weird tale. There were some fights that happened I'm tempted to say St. Paul's, but I don't know if that's correct, where there were people that were doing mixed martial arts, okay? But they had not seen the UFC. It was like never. It was like mixed martial arts had kind of evolved there on its own. It wasn't like, oh, hey, we've seen the UFC, let's do that here. It's like, and I said to one guy who was wearing a jiu-jitsu kimono, I said to him, man, because he was fighting this other guy that was just, you know, and I said to him, man, you better, you know, have a good guard. And he looked at me and he's like, what's a guard?
Oh,
and I was like, oh my God.
Wow.
You've seen the UFC? And he was like, what's that? And he hadn't seen the UFC either. It was just,
wow.
Holy Lord.
It was like
so anyway,
entering the Twilight Zone. Entering the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, it really was. It really was entering the Twilight Zone. Like, it was crazy. Wow. It was crazy. And the thing was, like, there were guys there. Like I said, the club I trained at in Winnipeg, it was mostly a jiu-jitsu club. Like, it focused on taking people down and choking them and stuff. But there were some people at these little events here and there, man, that were just like, holy Jesus, were they tough. Like guys that were really good wrestlers and really good boxers, and like, oh, and then the people running the events, like they had no problem if people were booing or whatever, just standing the fight up or telling you this is illegal or that's illegal, and just like it was just I don't want to call it a bum fight, but it was like the rules were just kind of like it was just kind of like whatever. Here we go. Let's see what happens.
Wow. Yeah. I guess the one part of seeing fights like that where they were unsanctioned, they were just people getting together, was Kimbo Slice, Jorge Masvidal fighting in the backyard in Florida. That hit YouTube and went viral and seemed to just make a star out of Kimbo for sure. And some of those guys that were there. Jorge has taken a while, but, you know, suddenly hit the big time famous wise in the last few years. But you know, it was so Wild West for so many years where, you know, people wanted to fight and they were going to fight anywhere. You said barn. I used to have to go to native reservations and see fights there all the time, all over Canada. I've been to native reservations where they were putting fights on, and it was so infuriating to me for so long that it was unsanctioned here. They weren't allowing mixed martial arts events until the UFC finally came and paid a lot of money and made them do it. But it was really bothersome for me that these fights were going on all over the world, and without sanctioning, you were, like you say, there wasn't doctors, there wasn't, proper anything. It was just this guy against that guy, let's match him up. It didn't matter what weight class, it didn't matter about anything. And it was dangerous.
Yeah. Well, you were mentioning earlier, and I was talking about Josh Neer.
Yeah.
Do you know how he got his nickname, the dentist?
I don't think I remember that story.
When he came, because some of my friends, when I trained back in Winnipeg, like Curtis and Joe and stuff, they would drive down to like wherever, the States, I forget where they went, like Iowa or something, you know what I mean? And my friend Curtis, when he was down there, he met this guy Josh, and Josh decided to come up and train with us a little bit in Winnipeg because we had a jiu-jitsu thing going on. Anyway, so we're sitting, so Josh comes up and we're training with him, and he's a nice enough guy, tough as nails, and he has his like DVD of his fights, you know what I mean? He's got like 99, or I don't know, I'm tempted to say 99. He's got like just close to 100 fights on this thing.
Wow.
And we're watching it, and like it's just fight after fight after fight where he's fighting people who are wearing jeans. Like,
great.
And they don't know what they're doing at all. You know what I mean? And I'm sure he's, obviously he's fought a lot of tough guys, but the DVD that we watched while sitting here in this like empty little pub, like on like a Tuesday afternoon or something, it's just fight after fight of him. He's in some pub. I'm tempted to say it's a pub called the Toad Holler, I think. And it was just kind of like, okay, who wants to fight? And guys that probably have been drinking just take their shirt off, take their shoes off, and get in the ring with this guy. And they're wearing jeans. Wow. And then he just smokes them. And then these guys don't know what they're doing. And so when they go to stand up, they get on all fours. And then he kicks them in the face, and their teeth go flying everywhere. You know what I mean? And he was proud that he had done this to all these people. You know what I mean? And it was like it was like, I don't know, it was basically bum after bum after bum, although they weren't actually bums. They were just guys that don't know how to fight, who were getting in there wearing like jeans or whatever they were wearing that to the pub, and they had no plan. They weren't like, oh, hey, let's get in a fight today. They were like, hey, let's go to the pub and have some chicken wings. And then while they're there, like, hey, who wants to fight this, like, lethal psychopath? Like, well, I've had a few whiskey. Let's see how I do. And then they take their shirt off and get in there. And again, he pounds them, they drop, and then they're on all fours, and he kicks them in the face, and their teeth go flying everywhere. And that's how he got the nickname the dentist. You know what I mean?
Now that is a story. That is so amazing. Wow.
I know.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want you to try to think of your Bodog 1 year traveling around the world, and just think of some of the craziest, most fun stories. I need to take a break really quickly and just mention my partners and sponsors. I want you to think about that year in Bodog. Tell me the craziest, most funniest, greatest stories that you have.
All right.
Okay, everybody. I just need to mention our partners and sponsors. Anchor FM has been a really great partner and sponsor from Complete Sports Media. They've been so great at posting on multiple podcast platforms and for helping us create this Anchor FM. If you want to get on, and it's the easiest place to make a podcast. Our other sponsor is Verbero, hockey equipment and apparel company, industry leader in technology, performance, and value. And the V350 stick is the lightest stick on the market, powerful and very explosive and incredibly light. Try it out. Our other sponsor here is Pampas Impossibilities. They design and sell dried florals, floral arrangements, and installations. They're designers of handmade, curated things with West Coast vibes at very reasonable prices. And finally, Forever Living. They are the aloe vera company. They grow and manufacture aloe vera-based products for health and beauty. And you can find all the information and all the details on CompleteSportsMedia.com and go to there. Just hit some of the boxes, learn more, and you can purchase some of the products at discounted rates. So thank you to our partners and sponsors. We couldn't be doing this without you. Okay, so 1 year Bodog. You must have been sad that they folded because you were full-time guy doing that, traveling the world.
Well,
What is the craziest story that you can remember from that 1 year?
well, probably when they sent me to the, I mean, I don't know if it's the craziest, but the one people generally ask about the most is when I got sent to the Playboy Mansion.
Okay.
Because Bodog did this thing where it was 1,000 people went to the backyard of the Playboy Mansion, and I'm pretty sure the tickets were $1,000 each.
Wow.
And I obviously didn't have to pay because I was like a Bodog employee, but I was sitting directly behind Hugh Hefner and his 3 wives. Sitting beside me was Michael Clark Duncan, like from the Green Mile, the big black guy.
Wow.
Sitting beside him was someone else who I think was like a TV show director. I think I don't know, he told me the shows that he was the director of. It might have been Lost, I'm not sure. And then sitting beside him was Joe Rogan, right?
Wow.
So it was me, Michael Clark Duncan, some heavy hitter TV guy, and then Joe Rogan. And the fights that were happening, Michael Clark Duncan and this TV guy knew each other, and they were betting like, $1 or $2 on the fights. And Michael Clark Duncan, I think that's his name, the guy from the Green Mile, the big black guy. Anyway,
Yeah.
He was asking me my advice, and the other guy was asking Joe Rogan his advice, and then they were betting on using the knowledge that Joe Rogan and I were sharing with them. You see what I mean? He'd be like, who do you think is going to win this fight? And I, of course, this was back in the day. I worked at Bodog. I knew all the fighters, and
Nice.
mixed martial arts was still kind of, it wasn't like it is now. People were still trying to take people to their areas of weakness, so to speak. And so I would say, oh, this guy's going to win, or that guy's going to win because he's got better wrestling, or this guy's got, And back in the day, generally, it did all boil down to who had better wrestling. If the person with the better wrestling could decide if the fight went to the ground or if the fight stood up. You know what I mean? And so, so I was sitting beside Michael Clark Duncan, and I was giving him advice, and the thing is, like, when you tell people you've been to the Playboy Mansion or that you're going to the Playboy Mansion, they think, like, here, let me ask you a question. What do you think the ratio is of men to women at the Playboy Mansion? And do you think it's 1-to-1, like it's 500 of each? If there's 1,000 people, how many are men and how many are women? Go, you tell me.
Well, if it's a mixed martial arts fight, around the world, I've seen fights, and it's typically, 300, 70% men, 80% men, even higher a lot of times. So the Playboy Mansion that night, I don't know. But, if it's a mixed martial arts event, I could think it would be 80, 90% guys.
Oh, yeah. It was like 995 guys, most of whom thought they were going to get laid. All these guys in their like 30s and 40s and 50s thinking they're here for some kind of orgy or whatever, you know what I mean? And there's only there's a couple Playboy bunnies here and there, but they're getting like chased around by whoever, these horny drunk guys in their 50s, and like, it was just, holy Jesus. Like, and the thing is, like, so many people were there not really to see the fights. They were just kind of there to kind of be there. You ever go somewhere just to sort of see and be seen, so to speak? And like, it was this very posh event. So I'm there talking to Michael Clark Duncan, this other guy, and then like, as we're looking around, like, most of the people there aren't even watching the fights. They're like over at the bar, or they're in like I think it's called the Grotto, which is this really gross, this big hot tub with this kind of like paper mache kind of thing built over it, but like the steam from the hot tub is making it like kind of decompose, and like, it's just, I looked in there and it was just, it's just nasty. Like, it's just gross. And then I peeked in the window of the Playboy Mansion, and then like inside it's like this really thick like shag carpeting, and then like these weird paintings, and they're like all these like, those beds that have like the curtains hanging on them and stuff. It was just like, holy Jesus, it looked like a freaking haunted house in there, you know what I mean? And then Hugh Hefner was like all like, he looked exactly like Mr. Burns from The Simpsons. He was like all bent over and stuff, and all crotchety and stuff. And anytime anybody would take his picture, he would like straighten up and stick his chest out. And then after the picture was taken, he would like turn back into this like crotchety creature, like, you know what I mean?
Great.
So like, yeah. And the crazy thing was, like, the fight started at like, I don't know, 8 o'clock or whatever. And then they kicked us out at like 10. You know what I mean? It was just like, all of you get the hell out of here, because it was
Wow.
I think because of like, the proliferation of like free online pornography, that Playboy, the magazine, like if you wanted to go out and buy like a copy of Playboy, is it even in publication? I don't even know.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure like back in the day, like when I was there in 2009, Playboy was realizing they had to find other avenues of income. And one way was to rent out their backyard. And this night, it was like a Saturday night, and they were renting it out to whoever, I guess Bodog, and it was a Strike Force event. And I think the next weekend they were having a convention of guys that sell like drill bits or something. You know what I mean?
Wow.
It was just, they were just renting out their backyard as like a venue.
Wow.
And then they were just kicking everybody the hell out. But the thing was like, it was this weird combination of like Hollywood types. And then there were some like, people from a certain motorcycling club, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just didn't. And people were getting kind of drunk, but not happy drunk. Like they only got like, there was like a line to get the drinks and stuff. So everybody had like one beer. So they were kind of like sort of like a bit buzzed, and it was kind of crowded, and it was weird. It was just very strange.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like
yes. I mean, I got my picture with 2 Playboy bunnies, so that was cool. And then there was like this weird little zoo, like in the shrubs or whatever. There were these little cages with these little like birds in them, and like there was like a peacock, and it was like, anyway, it was weird. But I mean, I talked to Frank Shamrock, Babalu. I met Bob Sapp for the first time, and it was funny. I didn't get a picture. It was Bob Sapp standing next to Uriah Faber.
Wow.
You know Uriah Faber from the UFC? And
of course,
Uriah Faber's like the size of like, of Teddy Ruxpin. And then Bob Sapp is this like, he's actually not that tall. He's only about as tall as me. But the thing is, like, he's not that tall. He's not that wide. There's a video on my YouTube of me interviewing him. That's when I met him the second or third time. He's not that tall. He's not that wide, but he's thick. It's like 4 people standing in a line to buy movie tickets. You know what I mean? Anyway, so the Playboy Mansion was probably the most memorable one. But
a lot of people in the fight business have actually encountered some form of abuse, and a lot of them, are trying to,
I don't know if you've read.
You know what I mean?
Have you read Ronda Rousey's biography? Oh my God, her dad like killed himself when she was like small, and like her mom is like this like judo world champion and like a doctor who is just unpleasable, and like nothing Ronda Rousey does can make her mother proud. Like she wins like bronze in the Olympics, and her mother's talking shit about her. And like every time any journalist puts a microphone in front of Ronda Rousey's mom's mouth, she's talking shit about her daughter, who's like UFC champion or whatever.
Crazy.
Can you imagine that? If you're like the UFC champ, your mom is talking shit about you to various media? Or like Jens Pulver, when he won the UFC belt. You remember Jens Pulver from back in the day?
Of course.
The guy starts crying. The guy starts crying and talking about a time his like dad put a shotgun in his mouth. Like, holy Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what my point is, but like sometimes these events, whether it's,
you're gonna see
Mansion
some craziness. I've been around it too.
Crazy shit.
I've been around a lot of events where all of a sudden, some guy just a little bit of a screw loose, a little bit of alcohol sets him off, and boom, we've got an explosion.
Here's another one. So I'm in Las Vegas, okay, and I'm there with a friend of mine, and one of the really high level fighters is there. I mean, a high level guy has fought for like a UFC belt and stuff. You know what I mean? And he's got a couple suitcases, and one of my friends says to this guy, "Hey, open your suitcase and show him what you got." He opens his suitcase, and it is full of guns.
Whoa.
And I don't mean it's like, when there's like, it's like got that really cool foam shit in there, and each gun fits into its little foam cutout. No, none of that. This is an open suitcase with guns just loosely tumbling around in there. And I mean like a lot of them. There's probably like a dozen or 20 guns in there. Probably somewhere in the teens. And so again, I say something just out of like surprise. I'm like, why the hell do you have all these guns? You know what I mean? And you know what his answer is to me? In case something needs shooting. That's what he said.
In case something needs shooting. Okay.
In case something needs shooting.
That's a line that's going to be hard to forget for the rest of your life.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
So
Yeah,
like,
well,
okay.
one of the things that I talk to a lot of people like yourself that teach martial arts, teach boxing, wrestling, lots of things. And I really applaud a lot of you guys because you are helping society, because there are a ton of angry people in this world. They've suffered abuse, they've suffered a lot of troubles in their life, and they need an outlet for that
Oh
anger,
yeah.
for that aggression, for that violence. And they come to gyms like you run, and they are able to get that aggression out on the mat, in the cage, in the ring. And it stops them from doing it at the bar,
Sure.
in their home, on
Yeah,
the street. And,
yeah.
do you feel that you are contributing to society in that way so often when,
I
these
know I'm
angry
less,
people are
I
coming
know I'm
towards
less
these gyms?
likely to go to a shooting spree, I
Yeah,
mean, when people find out that I have black belts in various martial arts or whatever, like some time ago, for example, I was doing a first aid course. And because in order to get your next rank or whatever in your thing, you got to get certain things checked off. And
sure.
they wanted us to go around the room and say and people are like, oh, hey, I'm here because I want to be a babysitter, or I run a whatever. And it gets to me, I'm like, oh, hi, I'm Jeff. I'm here, because I want to get my, I got to get my next stripe in Jiu Jitsu or whatever. And I got to get a first aid thing to do it. And they're like, oh,
Yeah,
do you know martial arts? I'm like, yeah, I got a black belt in this, a black belt in that. And then someone's like, oh man, don't piss this guy off. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And like, if I had a nickel for every time somebody said that to me, like over the years, people that realize in martial arts or jujitsu or what have you, it's like, oh man, don't make this guy angry. But here's the thing: people that do martial arts are way less likely to attack you because they're very tired.
yeah, exactly.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like if you
totally.
do like an hour or two of jujitsu, afterwards you just want to just sit down and have a smoothie. You don't want to get in a fight with anybody. You just
No,
want to, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And you're just
exactly.
like naturally, you've gotten all your anger or whatever you want to call it,
Gone.
all your piss and vinegar. It's just, oh,
Yeah,
Jesus. Does anybody
yeah,
have some chicken? You know what I mean? You just
yeah.
want to sit there and have a smoothie and,
I
just,
fully
no,
agree. Yeah, yeah. That's
something
something
bumps
that
into you, you're like, man,
I've
come
said to
on.
so many people. When I tell them my favorite sport is mixed martial arts, and I love the UFC, and I love watching fighting and stuff. And they're, oh, I can't handle it. It's too violent, and I think it creates violence in our society. And I say, absolutely not. It absolutely turns it the other way, because these guys get that aggression out there against a willing opponent, usually the
But
same level of skill level. And
sure.
also, I've went to so many events where I'm watching UFC and I'm with fighters, and we're all around, and I'm usually the one that drinks the most
Yeah,
because
sure.
I'm not preparing for a fight. I'm not going
Hmm.
to have to cut weight. I'm not going to
Yeah.
have to be, at the top level tomorrow athletically. And I'm shocked by that. All these guys are sitting around and they're barely drinking compared to
Yeah.
what I'm doing, because
Hmm.
I don't have to, get myself ready for a fight tomorrow. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's something that I've noticed a lot in society, and a lot of people don't really realize it, I don't think.
Yeah. 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 But the thing is, there's a big difference between someone that does martial arts and then someone that watches
Of
mixed
course.
martial arts but doesn't
Oh,
actually train. But I guess my point is, the point I'm making here is that doing martial arts is very good for you in terms of like
yeah,
just
of
exercise is good for you. You know what I mean? Go
course.
do the gross grind and see how pissed off you are at the top. You are less pissed off at the top than you are at the bottom. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It
yeah,
doesn't matter what has happened. You run the grouse grind at the top, you will just have a slice of pizza and a bottle of beer, and you will feel fine. You know what I mean?
yeah,
That's just physical exertion. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And
yeah,
martial arts is a great way to be physically. I mean, if you do the right kind of martial art, don't do the one where you don't sweat at all. Don't just do the one where you're like joining a cult. You just stand there, listen to a guy talk to you. And there are some like that. You
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah.
If you get the sweat going on, you know what I mean? You feel better afterwards. You know what I mean? So I guess the point is, everybody should do martial arts, and that way everyone would just be more chill because
Yeah,
everyone's just too tired to fight. You know?
I fully agree. I fully agree. Yeah, I definitely think that would be the smartest thing for people to do. I'd love to talk forever. I want to, I guess, end it on a few things.
Mm.
Tell me your favorite fighters ever in the UFC, and why.
Well, Khabib Nurmagomedov is probably like in terms of these days, because he still does what I think is the best thing to do in a fight, which is take somebody down, train really hard, don't talk a lot of shit, and get the job done. And like you were saying about Justin Gaethje, he's like super respectful to his opponents. He's so polite, and like he's like, oh, I don't want to break this guy's arm. I'm just gonna choke him. You know what I mean? Like martial arts isn't just about whipping people's asses. You know what I mean? Like Conor McGregor, for example. Is he a good fighter? Absolutely. The guy's got really good boxing. His takedown defense is pretty good. But the thing is he making the world a better place? No. He's like inciting basically riots. The guy has, like it's crazy. Like, what are you doing? Are you a good example for the youth, so to speak? You know what I mean? No. Like, what the hell are you doing, man? So anyway, Khabib Nurmagomedov, he's not just a good fighter. He's a smart guy. He's in really good shape. He's a fine example to just society in general. I mean, even though he's Muslim, I'm not Muslim, but still, you just follow his general ways of being. He trains hard. He's an easygoing guy. He doesn't talk shit. Hey, great.
Yeah, great example. Yeah, really good example.
And like, aside from that, maybe Damian Maia, you know what I mean, who also doesn't talk any shit, trains really hard, doesn't really hurt people, just takes them and chokes them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And generally fighters that do that kind of stuff. I mean, Yeah.
How about your best fights ever? Is there some fights that you can remember that you will rank at the top of the list?
Fights I can remember at the top of the list. Well, I mean, Fedor Emelianenko versus almost anybody is an incredible fight. Like, I still can't believe that Fedor Emelianenko fought Mirko Krokop and boxed with him, like just traded shots with him standing. Like, he's like, all right, here we go. Like, I thought, okay, Mirko Krokop and Fedor Emelianenko are going to fight, and Fedor is probably going to want to take this down. He didn't. He's like, all right, here we go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Nice.
So that one was amazing. Or Fedor versus Minotauro Noguera. I mean, he was basically one of the guys that, like, showed that you can be in the guard of a really high-level jiu-jitsu guy, and if you have good ground and pound, you're okay. You know what I mean? So that's incredible. I mean, Randy Couture versus Tim Sylvia way back in the day. Tim Sylvia is this, like, have you met him? He's like 6'10". He's huge. I've met him a couple times. He's huge. And he's talking all kinds of shit about this old, I think Randy Couture was 40 at the time or whatever, but Couture's got like good Greco-Roman wrestling. He was like a boxer in like the US Navy or something, and like, pow, puts him down and just pistol whips him. I was hugging, after that fight, I was hugging strangers. You know what I mean? Because I was so happy that Randy Couture had won. I don't even know why, because I met Tim Sylvia a couple times. I had nothing against the guy, but he was just talking. I guess what I'm saying that is, I don't that talk a lot of shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Conor McGregor's a good fighter, but he talks a lot of shit. Tim Sylvia, met him a couple times. Nice enough guy, but he was talking shit about Randy Couture. And I just don't, as a martial artist, I just don't think you're making the world a better place that way. And when someone talks shit, I want to see them get thumped. I want to see them get thumped. And when Randy Couture put the beating on him, I was pretty happy about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, one of my favorite fights too. Everybody said Sylvia's going to beat him. He's got the reach advantage. He's the champ. Randy's too old. He can't do it. And, he proved everybody wrong. It was fantastic. Very, very good. I'm glad you mentioned that. I do want to ask you, do you miss this? Do you miss doing podcasts? Do you miss doing the ring announcing, the play-by-play, the writing? Do you miss it? Is it something that you would love to have in your life again still?
Well, whatever. I don't mind talking to you. It's fun and stuff. But like, every story has chapters. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And like, I had the chapter of my life where I was like a young, single martial arts guy training every day. You know what I mean? Doing jiu-jitsu like 5-6 hours a day, just like a lunatic.
Wow.
And then I had a chunk there where I was, I wasn't training as much, but I was like doing a lot of writing. You know what I mean? About martial arts and writing for different websites. And then I had a year there where Bodog was sending me around the world and stuff. And then I had a long while there where I was focusing more on running a jiu-jitsu academy and stuff. But now, I'm a married dude. I have 2 kids. You know what I mean? And it's all about priorities. Do I miss the old days? Sure. But now this is the chapter of my life I'm in. You know what I mean? I'm a father. I'm a married guy. You know what I mean? Would I trade this for that? No. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah.
So now I'm teaching jiu-jitsu once or twice a week over in West Vancouver. And, or at least I'll go back to that once this frickin' vaccine, is gone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I watch the UFC sometimes on the weekends, but I'm much more of like a hobbyist. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Much more so. If you were to ask me to rank my priorities, is my jiu-jitsu my top priority? No, it's my kids. Is following mixed martial arts my top priority? No, it's my kids. And anybody that I still see guys that do this sometimes. They have a couple kids, but they're like, oh man, I'm hardly seeing my kids at all these days. I'm just training so much. I got to work on my triangle choke escapes. And I'm like, what? That doesn't make any sense at all. What are you talking about? What are you, retarded? Your kids and their development is more important than your triangle choke escapes. Maybe it's because I've already won a whole bunch of medals. Like I said, I won the World Cup and I won, the American Nationals as a brown belt. I won silver at the Pan Ams and stuff. And that competitive fire that's in me has been like, you know what I mean? I've won some medals and done some stuff. I've lived in Brazil a couple times. That's all kind of behind me. Maybe guys that, get married when they're 17 years old or something, they still have that, competitive fire in them and they just got to quench that somehow. But, but what do I know? But anyway, to get back to your question, do I miss those days? Sure. But if I were to go back to being a full-time jiu-jitsu guy or watching martial arts every day, I'd have to spend less time with my kids, and I don't want to do that.
Sure.
Because,
it's good you're making proper priorities. That's very, very
there
smart.
you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
I heard you mention that you thought George St. Pierre was obsessive compulsive type of a thing, and I look at a lot of your history. I mentioned off the top education, your all the belts that you have in martial arts. I do want to mention your education and just tell me briefly, wow, how did that all happen? You went to the University of Fraser Valley for English philosophy and sociology, Emily Carr for website design and photography, VCC for ESL teacher, BCIT for broadcast communications, SFU had a Bachelor of Arts English major and communications minor. And you did all these belts at the same time. And journalists, how did you possibly have all the time to get all that done?
Well, I mean, you're talking about, I'm a 48-year-old guy. It's not like I've done all this shit, if you want to talk impressive, I mean, what's his name? Tyron Woodley. You know what I mean? Tyron Woodley from the UFC. I interviewed that guy years ago for Full Contact Fighter Radio. And I don't know how old that guy was. I think he was in his mid-20s. And we're talking about a guy that he already had, his education was more than mine. He had 3 or 4 different businesses going on. He was a volunteer. And I was like, oh my God. And he's a UFC fighter. And I was like, holy Jesus, you're half my age and you're achieved double of everything I've ever done in my life. You know what I mean? So, if you want to be impressed by anybody, that guy's,
nice.
That guy's pretty impressive. But I mean, it's stick-to-itiveness. You know what I mean? Back in the day, I never got a belt in Kung Fu. I started doing Kung Fu first. I went to Taekwondo and I thought, okay, I'm going to get my belt in this. And I quit that and started doing Hapkido. I got my belt in that. And it only takes 4 years or whatever it took. You know what I mean? And when I was a kid, if I had not finished high school or university, my parents would have beaten me to death. You know what I mean? If I had dropped at a university, I guarantee I'd be in a shallow grave right now.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But after I graduated from university, I was like, what am I going to do for work? And so I ended up going to BCIT to take the radio thing. And then I was in radio for 10 years, and then I quit that to work at Bodog, you know what I mean? And I did that for a year. And then after that, I was like, what the hell am I going to do? And then I ended up taking the ESL thing at VCC, which was only a couple months. And then I worked as an ESL teacher for 10 years. You know what I mean? And, it just.
Yeah. Well, I just see so much grit, determination, persistence, will. Few words to describe yourself. If somebody said, describe Jeff to me.
You want me to describe me with a few words?
Yeah. Yeah. I just rattled off all that grit, determination, will, persistence, perseverance. But yeah, describe yourself in a few words to sort of wrap this up.
Describe myself in a few words. Holy Jesus. That would imply that I know myself. You know what I mean? And like sometimes the person who evaluates you best is someone that barely knows you at all. You know what I mean?
I see.
So I don't know, man. I would philosophical maybe. I spent a lot of time thinking about, you know, that kind of stuff. And
cool.
I don't know. I want to say easygoing, but I know that maybe not be the case. I've been, you know, pretty pissed off with some things here and there, you know. I don't know, man. I don't know. Wise. There. See there. No, I don't know.
Well, this was fun. Really great. I'm so glad we had this opportunity, and yeah, it was so nice to be able to hear so much of your story and so many of the fun things, fun events, great people.
I have a ton more. I didn't even talk about the time I met Anderson Silva, or you know, all this other shit. So you know,
well, fit
want to
that
go down
in
this road again? You know where to find me.
Yeah, well, of course I do. Well, fit that Anderson in real quick before you have to go. Is it a short
tell
story?
It now?
Is it a short story or?
Not really, man.
Okay, we'll do it again.
I'll save that one for next time.
We'll do it again next time. Yeah, sounds really great. Yeah, I appreciate this. I hope these 2 weeks that you're off goes really fast and you can get back at it, and yeah, enjoy your family with the extra time that you have with this pandemic shutdown, and yeah, again, thank you very much. This was fun.
Hey, you're welcome.
Look forward to seeing you soon at a UFC event, and yeah, we'll take it from there.
You betcha.
Okay. All the best.
Likewise.
Okay. Bye for now. Okay, everybody. Thanks so much. Really appreciate you tuning in today for such a fun conversation with Jeff. And make sure you find us this week. We'll be on the air quite a bit this week. We're previewing the Masters tomorrow. And yeah, I look forward to talking to you soon. Take care. Bye for now.